Hello everybody and welcome back to some more Universe Sandbox 2. My name is Superhoii and today we are going to be terraforming Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn in their current locations. So we're going to do that right now. I've got the solar system loaded up. We've got Jupiter over here. Let's zoom in. Okay, and here we are at Jupiter. Now in order to terraform Jupiter, this is going to be extraordinarily difficult. Now, what we have to do is, assuming that humans can just withstand any sort of gravity, we have to get rid of all of the hydrogen that currently exists on Jupiter. In order to do this, we're going to have to take a gigantic magical vacuum and just vacuum off all of the hydrogen off of Jupiter. So now we're left with this ball of iron and silicate. Now, what else we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, well, let's just say we found some oxygen in there. We're going to have to synthesize some water in order to sustain life on Jupiter. So let's just say we brought a gigantic, I don't know, just a gigantic machine that can combine oxygen and hydrogen and turn it into water. The other thing we could do is we could try and redirect an icy comet to Jupiter, which would give us a good amount of water. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot we can do just to put water on Jupiter here. So I'm going to put a little bit of water on Jupiter here. Oh, slow this down. Okay. Lots of... Oh, there we go. All right, there you go. Now we have a generous portion of water on our new Jupiter here. And because Jupiter is so freaking cold, we have to warm it up somehow. Negative 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this just isn't going to work. Now, in order to fix this, we would have to add an atmosphere, and I honestly don't remember how to do that. Maybe that'll give us an atmosphere. I don't know. I'm just going to add hydrogen in here, say it's a gas, and work from there. We're also going to give Jupiter a good amount of iron. There we go. Got a nice iron core there. Put, oh, no, too much hydrogen. I don't know how exactly to get an atmosphere on here, but basically, let's just assume that we were somehow able to get an atmosphere on this planet, and we were able to get the atmosphere to cause this massive greenhouse effect that would melt all of the ice on here. So let's just, whoa, okay, motion, no, temperature. Let's just, okay. I'm not sure if this will stay or not, but no, it probably won't. So we're just going to set it to, say, 32 degrees Celsius, and that should melt all of our ice on here. Okay, there we go. I had to set the temperature to like 100 degrees Celsius, but if we reset it back to 32 degrees Celsius, and that's going to keep dropping because I can't figure out how to put an atmosphere on this planet. But if we were somehow able to retain some of that oxygen, or we got some biology going on this planet here, after a very, 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 very long period of time, we could a new atmosphere on this new Jupiter here. And this is assuming we can withstand, what was it, 300 something. Yeah, 318 masses of Earth worth of gravity, which is just absolutely insane. But if we could survive that sort of gravity, and we could suck off most of the gases off of Jupiter, we could terraform it into something that looked maybe something like this. We don't know exactly what it would look like because obviously we can't see. So this is how we would terraform Jupiter. Take our magical vacuum, vacuum off all, or not all, most of the hydrogen and other gases off of Jupiter so that we could have a planet that we can walk on, basically. Then we would redirect a comet or synthesize water on the surface of Jupiter, and then Jupiter would be 100% livable. We'd have to add a massive atmosphere, obviously, but that's okay. So now let's find Jupiter, except we won't have to add any water to Saturn because Saturn actually has a decent amount of water as is. If we go in here and we look, it already has a gigantic amount of water in it. All we really have to do is take our magical vacuum again and suck off all of the hydrogen off of Jupiter. So, Saturn. So let's do that. Now I know I'm not actually taking off the gas, I'm just changing the percentages in here, but it works for what I'm trying to convey here. So if we zoom in a little bit, we can see that Saturn has a gargantuan amount of water in here. So we're gonna have to warm the planet up because right now it is basically just a gigantic Enceladus or Europa, basically, which are two moons that have a gigantic layer or a gigantic ice crust and a humongous ocean underneath. Let's go ahead and warm Saturn back up. And the way we do this, same way we did it with Jupiter, we just increase the amount of gas by either biological processes or we build underwater cities under the ice here, just gigantic underwater cities under this sheet of ice, which would protect us from a lot of the radiation that Saturn or the sun gives off, if that makes sense. It would protect us from a lot of that radiation, which would be super helpful. So we can either warm the planet up, which I'm going to do, or we can just build gigantic underwater cities, which in my opinion would probably be cooler if we could figure out how to deal with that. Maybe this will melt the ice. It takes a little time to melt an entire ocean's worth of ice, even at 100 degrees Celsius. There we go. So now, just like in the last video I did, Saturn is a gigantic ball of water. And this is the same for Neptune and Uranus too, because they are, and actually Neptune and Uranus have, percentage-wise, more water than Saturn does, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure percentage-wise Neptune and Uranus have more water than Saturn does. So we wouldn't have to add any water to those, and we just repeat this process for Neptune and Uranus as well. Again, just our magical vacuum to suck off most of the hydrogen, just enough to where we can see our ball of ice here. And Uranus is mostly water, so we couldn't build cities all the way down to its core, like underwater cities underneath the ice like we did with Saturn, but we could build cities that are just below the ice, so long as we could generate oxygen through electrolysis or whatever. We wouldn't need an atmosphere for that. However, we need some way to heat the planet up, and an atmosphere is generally a good way to do that. Out here, though, this far away from the sun, I don't know how exactly that would work. So it may just be really cold on this planet, and if we were eventually to put an atmosphere on this planet, it would have to be ridiculously big to cause a greenhouse effect that is large enough to keep this at a reasonable temperature. And again, we'll just set this to 100 degrees C. Speed up time. Let it melt. There we go. And all of the ice has melted, and we have our gigantic ball of water here, which is, that's really all it is, just a gigantic ball of water. Really, it wouldn't be feasible to put an atmosphere on planets that are this far away from the sun. Jupiter, maybe, if we were to terraform it, that is, and we could withstand gravity that's just that intense. But just putting an atmosphere on a planet that's way out here is just, it's way too far-fetched, because we'd have to have an atmosphere that's so thick it would be thicker than the atmosphere on Venus, which is like 95 times as thick the atmosphere on Earth. So it's just not really a feasible option, unfortunately. So let's move on to... where is... oh, I saw Neptune. It was over here. There's Neptune. I'll zoom in on Neptune here. And Neptune, again, mostly water. That's why they're called icy gas giants, because while they do have a fair amount of gas, they are mostly water. There's not a whole lot other than just water in these outer gas giants. And Planet 9, there is no way to terraform Planet 9. It is so far away from the sun, and we don't know what its composition is like. We think that it should be a pretty big, decently big, like 10 masses of Earth gas giant, somewhere about, oh, I forget what the number is. I honestly don't remember what the number is. It would be a super dim planet that doesn't receive much light from the sun at all, so it'd be super dim, almost impossible to see. Neptune, we actually didn't know existed until, I want to say it was like the I don't know. I'm not going to say when I think it was, but basically we didn't know that Neptune existed until we found it, and it was we found it the way we would be searching for Planet 9. Anyway, let's terraform Neptune here. We're going to take off most of the hydrogen again with our magical vacuum of space sucker-uppiness. Yeah. And we're going to go to temperature and just warm it up again. Now, this far out, there is absolutely no way. Just like with Uranus and potentially Saturn, maybe Jupiter, there is no way you can get a atmosphere that has a greenhouse gas effect that is potent enough, that would be thin enough for humans to survive in. Assuming we could deal with the gravity of these planets, because they're so much more massive than the Earth is. So it's just not really feasible to put atmospheres on planets this far out to warm the planet up, as it were. And there we go. Giant ball of water. Now, I think it would be more... this is a feasible idea anyway, but I think it would be a more attainable of a goal to put cities underneath a giant sheet of ice if these planets had massive oceans underneath them. Which, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what the future has. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm sorry that I couldn't do much more about this. Terraforming these planets in their current positions is extremely difficult, because there's not a whole lot of options, and I even had to include a little bit of magic. Because, yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video, comment down below, let me know what you would like to see next. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Remember, stay sneaky!